I was watching last night as Trump sat there signing all of those executive orders. And I also watched his inauguration speak where he said, we will forge a society that is colorblind and merit-based. And he signed a bunch of executive orders last night to eliminate a variety of different DEI programs in the federal government, directing agencies to dismantle these practices within 60 days. And then over the last couple of months, we've seen Meta come out and dismantle and reverse some of their DEI programs. We've seen McDonald's, Walmart, Ford, Harley Davidson, Boeing, Amazon, Toyota. It feels like there's a real shift happening in both how, identity politics, but also in the sort of corporate environment that those identity politics have really emerged from. Are you supportive of Trump's move to roll back DEI measures?
So I think there's a lot of nuance here. I would argue in universities, DEI is used as a giant misdirect from people such as myself who are enforcers of the caste system and wake up every morning and look in the mirror and ask ourselves the same question: how do I increase my compensation while decreasing my accountability? And what I found is the ultimate strategy is to create an LVMH rejectionist bullshit elitist strategy where Dartmouth sits on a endowment of $8 billion and lets in 500 kids. So the conversation around who gets in is a misdirect from the important question, that is how many. If you are not growing your endowment or your freshman class faster than population, you should lose your tax-free status. We should be letting in more gay kids, more trans kids, more white Republicans from rural states. You know who doesn't talk about DEI? Junior colleges, because there's no admissions. They don't have a problem with DEI. So I think DEI on campus has ended up eating its own tail, started out with the right idea. Now it's nothing. And I would argue the same is somewhat true of the Democratic Party. I went to the Democratic National Convention. On the dnc.org website, it lists 17 special interest groups, and it says explicitly who we serve: Asian Pacific Islanders, seniors, veterans, Black Americans, the disabled. It basically lists, I added this up, 76% of the population. And when you say you're actively advocating for 76% of the population, you're not advocating for 76% of the population. You're discriminating against the 24%. It's gone too far. I would argue in the workplace, having served on 7 public company boards, and I'm going to do a lot of boasting here because I'm desperate for all of your affirmation, and 12 private company boards, there's still work to be done in the private sector. There still is a cycle. 40% of all venture capitalists and probably 70 or 80% of all venture capital deployed are white guys from just 2 universities, Stanford and Harvard. So I would argue universities, it's gotten out of control. I'd love to see the DEI apparatus disassembled, along with the ethics department, the sustainability department, the leadership department. These are all bullshit where we hire formally important people with no standards. They never get fired. It just translates to more student debt. In the boardroom, in corporations and certain sectors, I do think there is a need to be thoughtful about broadening the aperture of the lens and bringing in people who are underrepresented. There's still a dearth of women raising venture cap. So I think it's nuanced based on sector. But to just say all DEI is bad, I want to move to where the University of California did in 1997. They don't have race-based affirmative action. They have adversity-based affirmative action. I'm a beneficiary of affirmative action. I had something called Pell Grants. I was raised by a single immigrant mother who lived and died as secretary, so I got grants. I had unfair advantage because I came from a household that was low income. And I think that there should be affirmative action, and I think it should be based on color, but that color is green. The poor need our help. The moment you start advocating for special advantage based on any external factors, I think at this point in our society, it probably causes more problems than it solves.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right, Stephen. And I think if we take a step back and look at why DEI has become such a big part of the conversation, it's precisely because instead of addressing the reality of people's lives, which is some people are disadvantaged and some people are advantaged, actually, what we've mainly done, and Scott alluded to at the very beginning of our discussion, is we've given a leg up to very wealthy ethnic minority people from successful families. And their children now get into prestigious universities. which they probably would have done anyway, some of them, because they come from very advantaged backgrounds, and the kids that are growing up in poverty, black and white, have no shot whatsoever. But the reason that it's become such a big issue around the Western world, actually, I don't think it's the nuances that we've delved into here, but actually something else, which is we have created the most ethnically diverse societies in history. And what I mean by that is not that we've created societies in which there are large groups of people who are different from each other, but for the first time, probably in human history, we've created societies in which there is a lot of ethnic diversity, and there is no overt discrimination against some groups of people in the sense of, the imperial societies in the past would have had one dominant ethnic group, which is, the Russians in the Soviet Union, or the Turks in the Ottoman Empire, or the Brits in the British Empire, whatever. That was the ethnic group that was like the dominant one, and everybody else was a kind of second-class citizen, and everybody knew it, right? We don't have that anymore. We have highly diverse societies where people of every single background exist, in which we have this idea that we're all supposed to be equal. And when we have programs that explicitly discriminate against people, there were times when the discrimination was explicit against black people. Well, we've gone full circle now, where the discrimination was going the other way in university admissions, in hiring, in corporate America, in government, in all sorts of things. In this country, the BBC has internships that aren't available to white people, etc. When you get to that point, as Scott said earlier on, everyone just goes, look, I know I'm not supposed to say this, but the reality is this is racism. This is a form of racism, and I thought we were trying to get away from the racism. So to the extent that the elimination of DEI is about creating a merit-based society in which people are given an opportunity,